The reason I wanted to have you, Nick Myers, on this podcast is because over the past 365 days, maybe even less than that, I've seen your social presence go from, call it cliche, and kind of what everyone else is doing to very, very specific, and then very specifically successful. And we were talking about it before I turned the recording on.
Yeah.
And I said it was like watching you go from 0 to 600 within the space of a quarter mile almost. And there's a reason for that. Well, let's start out first, looking all the way back, 365 days when you started posting on LinkedIn. What was your initial strategy for that? Why did you do it?
There was no strategy.
Well, it kind of showed.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, there absolutely was no strategy. I just was getting really into LinkedIn. I was at the tail end of 2017, early 2018, when the whole video thing just started taking off. And I had a profile on there, and I think even during that time, a lot of people who were on there just saw it as this is a glorified resume building tool. But then I just happened to go on my mobile app one day and I saw all these people posting video, and I'm like, wait, what happened? This changed. So I did what everybody else did. I started following these people, and initially it was great because LinkedIn never had video. All these people, they had lots of experience in what it seemed like they were doing, and I know a lot of them do, and they started just giving advice, and I kind of ate that up like candy. And then I was like, okay, I wonder if I can make my own videos. So I'm like, well, all these people are like, follow your dreams and you can do what you want as long as you use your prior experience to make an informed decision. All the mumbo jumbo, the motivational hat folks. And I was like, let me try and do that. So I did that, and I was like, this just feels awful. I hate it. This is god awful. So I think I'm trying to remember the month, but I ultimately in 1 month just decided I'm just going to start talking about voice and AI because this is something that I'm getting more into. This is what I'm pivoting my business towards. So why not talk about it? There's nobody else talking about it for one. So why not Nick Myers become the person doing that? And on top of that, I was working with my very good friend and mentor at the time, Miri Rodriguez, on building myself a personal brand. And she said, well, truly, that's what you should be doing if that's what you want to be known for. So I just decided to start talking about that, and the rest is kind of history.
And a little backstory on Nick for listeners. I'm looking across the table. We're down in my very sophisticated podcasting empire studio. I'm looking across the table at Nick, and I'm seeing someone who is less than half my age, who is I would say, recent graduate from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. 2016. So there you go. I'm class of 1983.
Gotcha.
Stevens Point, 83 versus someone who's in an entirely different millennia.
Right.
Yeah, that says everything right there. But I wanted to talk to you because so many people don't understand how powerful this personal brand building can be, not only for someone with a deep, rich career of many decades, but someone who's barely out of college when it comes to raising your profile and building interest and giving people a reason to contact you. And you kind of gave us a hint at your pivot from general guru wannabe, follow your bliss and your dreams will come true, motivational video stuff to, I remember the day you posted it because it was such a marked change from what you had been doing.
Yeah.
You did a post, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Correct me.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but it was, I started doing this, and I started doing what I saw other people doing, and it didn't fit. It didn't feel right. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Instead, I'm going to talk about some things that are very interesting to me, specifically artificial intelligence and voice search, the Alexa world, and how it applies to marketing. You not only started talking about AI, but you started talking about even a smaller niche about AI, which is AI for marketers. Now, I'm a big follower of Pat Flynn and his smart passive income empire of thought leadership, if you will. And one of the things he loves to say, and I think I've quoted on this podcast before, is there's riches in the niches. You not only picked a niche, you picked a sub-niche or a niche, whichever. And you got really specific. And then I watched that niching down bear immediate fruit.
Yes.
And by immediate, I mean, you posted that video, and I think within 2-3 weeks, something happened. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of preface this too. So What you're saying, absolutely. It was me deciding to pivot to these different niches with my personal brand and the content on LinkedIn. One of the things that I used to my advantage too was I stopped being afraid of reaching out to people. I stopped being afraid of thinking, boy, if I reach out to so-and-so who has all this experience and is doing all these cool things, they're not going to want to talk to me. I just turned my brain off and was like, you know what? If they don't reach back out to me, then I move on to the next person. So I would say that's one of the core strategies that I employed too through this process was finding people that I thought were doing cool stuff, reaching out to them, just learning about their story, learning about them. You never lead in, of course, with, hey, I want something from you, or hey, you always try and make it about them. And then I just formed a relationship, formed friendships, and just carried that through. But you're right. Shortly after I posted that video where I was like, I'm going to talk about machine learning, one of my friends who works at Be The Match up in Twin Cities saw that. And it just so happened that him and I were catching up, I think a couple of days actually after I posted that. And we were talking and he's like, well, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, well, I'd always be, I'm always up for more speaking engagements and I'm trying to build that portion of my career. He's like, well, I saw your video and is like, I totally think you're on the money with machine learning, voice, all that stuff. He's like, here, I'll give you the name of the person who's in charge of recruitment for a speaker series called Digital Summit Series. So I took that lady's contact information, shot her an email. We had a conversation, connected like within the first 5 seconds. Next thing I know, I'm going out to Seattle, Washington in February to talk about how brands can give themselves a voice using the power of AI and voice assistant technology. So yeah, that's kind of what happened, at least initially, from when I took that pivot to that new content.
Well, and the thing I want to point out about that pivot is you went from the most general banalities to the most focused technical conversation, still, making it applicable to a specific audience, marketers, and you actually got more traction by being specific.
Yes.
I'll often use a metaphor or analogy to make a broader point, and I always like to talk to clients and say, are you a Swiss Army knife or are you a scalpel? A Swiss Army knife is a crappy knife, a crappy corkscrew, a crappy screwdriver, a crappy toothpick, versus a scalpel, which is built for one thing and it's built to do it perfectly. And if your answer is, well, I'm a Swiss Army knife, I'm going to say good luck with that, because nobody wants a Swiss Army knife if they're paying for something specific. Right. They want that purpose-built tool. So you made yourself a purpose-built tool, if you will. Yeah, you are a bit of a tool. But you've made yourself a whole lot more valuable. And consequently, again, I'm looking at this 24. Are you 24 or 25?
I would be 25 at the end of the month.
I'm going to say you're still 24 then. I'm looking at this 24-year-old who's starting his career pretty early days in the grand scheme of things. And you're already speaking nationally, and I just heard that you might be going international as well.
Yes. So again, deploying some of these same tactics that I've been using on LinkedIn and other platforms, you're right, I actually will be traveling to Australia in August to be the international keynote for the Social Media Marketing Summit for Australia and New Zealand. Hosting a workshop now, I found out within the last month, on voice user strategy and how people can create a Google action. And then I just think before we started recording here, yes, I got contacted by an organization on Twitter and will be going to Thailand in November to participate in a panel on AI and new technology in the hands of youth.
Oh my God. Did you hear what he just said? Because of his, and you are not a spammer when it comes to social media.
No,
you're pretty focused.
Yeah.
You don't do every day, twice a day.
It's not, no, absolutely not.
But the tempo and the amount of posting you do has borne incredible fruit, as I mentioned earlier. What is your posting tempo? Or when you look at a week, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Not only, we've already talked about the subject you're talking about, which is AI, machine learning, the voice assistant universe, especially directed toward marketers. But what is your periodicity? What's the tempo? When you look at a given week, what's your plan?
Yeah, so that's shifted quite a bit actually over the past year, I would say, more than anything. But my two primary platforms are LinkedIn and Twitter, and I love them both because, of course, they both yield a lot of opportunity, but I just like the way they're set up as content platforms. So LinkedIn, I try to do at least 3 times a week. It may be less depending on what I have going on, and that of course, just falls on me to remember, but usually when I do LinkedIn, it's 3 times a week and I try to keep it varied. I usually only do one thing I have coming up for self-promotion. Then I focus on, some new piece of information that is going on in the voice or AI world, or I just talk about something that happened for me in the week without it necessarily even relating to AI and voice all the time. Because the thing is, I've learned, and I'm sure you've seen too on LinkedIn, if you keep rehashing the same thing over and over and over and over again, people tend to start tuning out. And I know I've done that personally, watching a lot of these people as the platform has grown who they can't seem to make that pivot and shift towards something new. So that's what I try to do, at least on LinkedIn, is 3 times a week, a couple of different things, make it varied. Twitter, I try to do at least 5 to 6 to 7 times a day in terms of tweeting. And all the tweets are very tailored towards voice. They're tailored towards AI. I'll sometimes do promotion of events I have coming up. I'll promote other people I know their events coming up. I now have a podcast and I promote that. But it's very tailored towards the AI and voice community. And I don't know, I guess my background being in marketing communications, I guess just knowing how to structure some of this stuff for Twitter comes to me, but I always schedule it out in TweetDeck, and I just use conversational tone. I actually type it out when I schedule like I would be talking. And I do it on the hour, every hour, from like starting at 8 or 9 all the way to 4 in the afternoon. That way, every hour, something is going out on Twitter. And I always make sure there's a couple in there that, engage people, ask for feedback. One of the tweets I made last week that had a ton of comments was, what is the one way that you think brands can begin leveraging AI or voice within their organization? I got like 10 comments on that thing and like 4 retweets. That's kind of been my strategy for both. I've had a lot of results come from both. LinkedIn, again, has been a lot of these speaking events and different things. Twitter has been speaking, but I also got featured in PR Daily because of Twitter, because I just so happened to be in the right tweet at the right time, if you will. So that's kind of my strategy for both. And, it's individual to everybody, but that's what really works for me. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as it keeps working.
Well, you got to be in the game to be winning at the game. And you certainly are. But the best way for people to learn about someone's tempo, curiosity, subject areas is to actually follow them. If I wanted to follow you on Twitter, what's your Twitter handle?
It is at the Red Nick M.
At the Red Nick M.
Yes.
Okay, good. And Nick Myers, you look up Nick Myers on LinkedIn, you're going to find this fresh face, freckled face.
Red hair.
Yeah, you're going to see a fresh-faced, freckled, red-haired guy named Nick Myers. That is the one, because it's the only truly freckled, fresh-faced,
I haven't found another one with red hair yet. So
yeah, exactly. So by all means, hook up with Nick on LinkedIn, because I know you field anybody
absolutely
as part of your network. Ideally, as anybody who's listened on this podcast knows, the best way to do that is to type a personal note like, hey, Nick,
right.
I've been following you a long time. I loved your tweet about blankety blankety blank. I would love to connect to you here on LinkedIn. Are you into that?
And I will always respond. If you sales pitch me, I will not respond, and you'll be moved into the chasm of people who sales pitch me section in my messages.
Oh, you are so right, man, because I'm pretty open to people connecting. So if someone connects to me and it's a blind connect, I'll do, well, you're from Pakistan. I'm sorry, I can't do much for you. So I'm going to say no to that. But anybody else, I'll generally say, okay, sure. But the second you come back to me with a pitch, I unfollow and unconnect, disconnect immediately. Because again, I kind of look at my follower list as a reflection on me. And so if someone's associated with me that's a huckster, that's a snake oil salesperson, or kind of a questionable taste, that's a reflection on me, man. And I have enough trouble keeping my own reflection clean in a mirror, so I'm not afraid to unfollow. But that's very cool. Nick Myers, the Red Nick M on Twitter, and Nick Myers, the redhead fresh-faced kid on LinkedIn. This episode of the Nonfiction Brand podcast is brought to you by Nonfiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group dedicated to the art and craft of personal branding, and we'd like to invite you. Just search Nonfiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus. But let me tell you, I think you pay attention to Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh,
right?
yeah, he pops up in my feeds all the time.
Yeah, he does mine too. And a lot of the times I'm like over-caffeinated New York guy.
Yeah.
I don't need that. But every once in a while, he'll say something that kind of slaps me upside the head and goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, the occasional profound one.
Yeah, he's said it over and over again because he sees the need to say it over and over again. And he'll say, if you're 40, if you're 50, if you're 60, and you think that doing this is just for kids, you're wrong. Because all you're doing is leaving opportunity on the table for these guys to snap up, and you are left in the lurch. And I think I saw him do that a number of years ago, and it kind of filed it away going, God, he's talking to me. Why? Because at the time I was the copywriter, creative director at an ad agency, you know, the engine in the back room that keeps everything going. And then one day you wake up and you realize, oh, an engine can be unbolted at any time and replaced. Maybe being an engine isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe instead you need to be the driver. And again, if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me use the NASCAR analogy of if you're the engine in that NASCAR, great, you can be replaced. If you're the driver, your brand moves from team to team, car to car, right along with you. Because if you love Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Dale's moving from one car to the next, you're following him to that next team, that next car. And yes, I do know that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has retired. But
no,
anyway,
it's a good analogy.
It really is. And I think it applies to a lot of people. But I want to get back to the amazing, to me, ascent from 0 to 600 that I've witnessed over the past year. And obviously, the biggest thing probably was getting your niche right. You didn't just pick that niche because it's kind of new and happening, shiny object. You picked it based on what I've read because you're really interested in it. That you aren't doing it as a gratuitous, well, this is popular like Bitcoin. It's not like Bitcoin where people are like, Bitcoin, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon.
Right.
It's much more, to my understanding, truly organic, true to who you are, truly authentic. Is that right?
No, that's absolutely right. And, you know, I found you can always tell the difference between somebody who's interested in a space because they're trying to make a quick buck versus somebody who truly believes in what they're actually doing. And I truly believe in what I'm doing. My epiphany moment with this technology was, it was January of 2018. I had just gotten an Amazon Echo for Christmas. I had seen the commercials. I never thought I would be buying one for myself. My mom had got it to me because she saw it. And I was like, okay, great. This cutesy little voice thing that just answers questions and stuff. Well, I had it sitting on my kitchen counter and I was in the bathroom and it was within earshot. And, you know, I'm in the bathroom, whatever. And I realized, oh, I'm out of toilet paper. And me being 23 at the time, I was like, you know, I really don't feel like running outside now in the 25-degree Wisconsin weather to go get toilet paper. I'm not going to do that. So then I was like, you know, I could grab my phone, I could hop on Amazon and I could buy it. I could do that. And then just like half a second of another thought, I was like, you know, I wonder if that thing on the kitchen counter can order it. So I was like, Alexa, I need toilet paper. Alexa recommended me a 12-pack of Cottonelle, gave me a discount because I was using Alexa. And because I was a Prime Pantry member, offered to ship it to my doorstep in 24 hours. And I said, buy. And that whole interaction took less than 10 seconds.
And that was the day you woke up and smelled that coffee, which is, oh my gosh, this is so convenient that it's going to stick. Because I look at some of the technology that's coming out and go, yeah, shiny object technology. Then you look at other stuff and you go, no, that's going to stick. Like virtual reality, shiny object technology.
Right now, very shiny, yes.
Yeah, AR, augmented reality, that has a little bit more application, especially if you're traveling or something like that. But VR, shiny object. AR, it's got some legs. But then you look at your experience with Alexa via the Echo and say, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was like walking into a house with electricity for the first time, watching someone flick on a light switch and the whole house lights up.
Yes.
Wow. You know, Arthur C. Clarke has his third law of technology. Any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes. Well, yes, exactly.
It sounds like you decided right then and there to become a magician.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because even prior to my experience with Alexa and getting into that spot, I was already kind of starting to become more interested in AI just because I had found his name is Dr. James Whitaker. He formerly worked at Microsoft, but he had published all these videos. He was a distinguished engineer there, and I was just learning. I watched this talk that he gave called Rise of the Machines, and he was just going all over the place with futurism and everything. But to me, I was like, that is so fascinating. So even before the Echo experience and the Alexa experience, I was already learning about AI. And then when I had that, I just took it to the next level. And one of the things that I've always thought about and has empowered me to really want to help people through this technology, help brands leverage this technology is So often we say magic doesn't exist, or we throw that around and it's just things of fiction. Well, the fact that I can be sitting in my car driving down the road, I have my smartphone plugged into my car, and I drive a car that has Apple CarPlay. I can invoke Siri, ask Siri any song that I want to play. Siri will then play my song because it grabs it from some server somewhere, beams it up to space, sends it back down to my car through cellular technology, and renders it in full stereo quality over my car stereo system. If that is not frickin' magic, I don't know what is.
And that's exactly what your experience with the Echo was,
Yes.
which was, wow, that's magic. And the magic is they removed all the friction out of the transaction. And,
Yes.
and I'm sure you hopped on that right away as a marketer saying,
Absolutely.
oh, this is why this is
Yes.
valuable.
Yep.
Because again, as a marketer, you know this, if there is zero friction between a customer's want and your product, you're going to sell a lot more
Yeah.
than if they have to jump through hoops to do it. Amazon rules the
Yes,
world.
I was going to say, just look at Amazon.
Yeah.
They reduced, out of any company in the history of companies, they reduced the friction between buying products. I mean, that's what they did. And look at them. They're a $1 trillion valuation company now in a matter of 20-something years.
Yeah, you can fight it all you want, but the goal of technology has always been remove friction
Yes.
from the equation. Whether it's how to start a fire, well, here's a faster way to start a fire, or how to move quickly from point A to point B.
Yep.
It's not about the horse, it's not about the car, it's about the need to travel. And one of the things I applaud you for doing is you're specializing in something that is not going to go away.
No.
It's what I think of as a first principle thing, which is removing the human from the equation whenever possible to do all sorts of tasks versus someone who specializes in Google AdWords or Facebook ads.
Right.
Because the reality is Facebook ads could go away at any time.
Yes.
Based on the whim of one person.
Correct.
And consequently, and I see this all the time, and it worries me for my friends who are that specialized in it, to say, do you understand that he could turn off your livelihood like that?
Absolutely.
Which he has done already to companies.
It broke this past week, actually, I do recall.
That's right. Exactly. Facebook couldn't get images to load and all that stuff. And if your business was really dependent on that, they went dark, you went black.
Right.
Well, AI, machine learning, how it applies to marketing, this is why you're getting tapped by people in Thailand.
Yes.
Because you are not 5 miles in front of everybody, but maybe 15 steps
Correct.
in front of everybody. And it always amazed me. Well, put it this way. I saw someone speak and they said the thing about a guide is they aren't 15 miles ahead of you. They're 5 steps ahead of you. A guide guides you down the path the right way. And they don't have to be all omniscient about the technology or whatever. They just have to be more than you, the audience. So, and I'm not trying to belittle your base of knowledge or anything like that. I'm just trying to point out that you, a 24-year-old, are now an international expert on AI and marketing and machine learning for marketers, based on the fact that you're 5 steps, 15 steps, 20 steps ahead of the rest of the crowd.
Right. And what you said actually just gave me chills, because when you mentioned me being a guide, this is so weird. So I actually got the chance to visit Microsoft corporate headquarters to visit Mary Rodriguez back in April of 2018. And I saw Doc James Whitaker, the man I mentioned earlier. He was presenting that day, but they were doing a joint session, and Mary's big into storytelling and personal brand building. Of course, she was mentoring me, but they brought me up in the front of the room and helped me devise a personal brand statement. I was in front of all these Microsoft folks. We were writing it on whiteboards and everything. And guide was a part of my personal brand statement. And I don't know why, when you just said that now, I think it was the first time I've heard from somebody else that they view me as a guide, even though that, I guess, has been ingrained with me as I've been building my personal brand, is to guide and teach people.
And that's my point, which is I call you a guide because you act like a guide. And that might be because you actually figured out what your words are. Mm-hmm. But if guide is one of your words, and I call them the key 3, what are your 3 words
Guide
or phrases?
is one of them.
Guide, okay, there you go. If you as a personal brand haven't developed your key 3 phrases or words that really sum up who you are, for example, I'll use myself as an example. My 3 words are collaborative, because I work with people, creative, I got to be creative. You're not going to get a spreadsheet from me. I'm not going to quote nanoseconds of dwell time or anything, but it's going to be creative stuff and then provocative. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, I'm provoking ideas. I'm provoking interest. I'm provoking you to make the extra step and go follow the Red Nick M on Twitter, because I want to shake things up. My value to someone is not to play back what they just said. Mm-hmm. It's to challenge what they just said and maybe add to it, plus it out a little bit further. Yeah. Those are my words. You said guide is one of yours. What are the other key three words that describe your personal brand?
I'm trying to remember, because this was like over a year ago we did this. Guide was definitely one. I think some aspect of technology was, and I think empowerment.
Boom. That makes total sense, because every post I see you do is you guiding people into areas of technology, specifically for marketers, that can be a little bit daunting. So you're actually empowering them.
Right.
That's how those words work. They give you a focal point so that you're not following shiny objects.
Correct.
You're not doing the videos of follow your bliss or get freedom, live the lifestyle you want from the south of France or the deck of a boat.
Yeah.
You know, that's late night garbage stuff as opposed to stuff people can actually use. And I applaud you for that. And we're going to go deeper into your personal brand in the next episode next week. But for now, I just want to say thank you to Nick Myers, who's a fellow Stevens Point pointer, for coming on the podcast. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast and Nonfiction Brandversity, the free Facebook group that I invite you to join. It's for small business branders and personal branders. And by the way, small business owners, your brand is a personal brand. If you want to join, just ask to join. You're in guaranteed. For now, I'm DP and he is
Nick Myers.
And we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.